Hello and welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're going to be making a massive crowd without breaking your computer. Let's get started. So what we're going to do first is we're going to just fly over to the Mixamo website. Now this is what we're going to be using to get the animated characters that we can begin working. Now Mixamo is really great. It's free. You can create a free account, log in, and then the way it works is you've got like the character page, so you can like look through all these different characters, and then you have the animation page. So first you pick a character, and I've just picked a few. I picked 4 different random kind of generic human characters. So like this guy here, Leonard. Got a nice little walk here for him. So the way you pick him, he won't be walking. It'll just be, standing still, probably even in T-pose. And then you go over to the animation section, and this is where you can look through all the different types of animations. There's lots of mocap stuff here that's fun to play with. So have a go at it. I grabbed generic walk is what it's called. So you can just type in, if you want to narrow it down, type in walk, have a look at all the different types of walks. Standard walk, that's it. So standard walk. And then I've ticked in place. Now this is going to be really useful for us when we actually get this character in motion in our scene. Having him walk in place means we can control his position in world space using other things. So it's not baked into the animation. So that's really useful. So go for that in place. And you just click download. And I've gone for 24 frames a second. You can do whatever you want for your project. I haven't gone for any keyframe reduction. And we're going to do it with the skin. And FBX will be the format, and binary, just the default one that's there. That works fine. Once in Blender, we're going to come up to File and Import. And then we're going to come down to FBX. We're just going to go to the FBXs. Where are they? Here we go. So here they are, standard walk, 1, 2, 3, and I'll just grab this first one. Scale I'll leave. This is all fine. I really don't think we need to change any of the settings. Just hit import, see if it works. All right. There we go. This is what it looks like when he comes in. Shiny looking metal man. And if you hit play, he'll walk for a minute and then freeze. So everything is working as expected. Now, just as a reminder, this project file is available on Patreon if you join this month or next month. So you'll be able to get all this stuff there ready to go. You can use this in your own projects. Likewise, there's always an uncut version of these tutorials. You may not know. So if you want to watch the uncut version, which this one is like an hour and a half long, so there's a lot of extra stuff. I talk in detail about things. So if you want to check all that out, you can join on YouTube at the All Access Pass level or higher, and on Patreon at the first tier and up. So all tiers get the access to the uncut stuff. So I'm going to switch over to rendered view just so we can have a look at him. And I'll turn off scene world. And you can see as well, he's got this like super shiny, it looks like a little plastic figurine. It's kind of cool. Come up here to the shader editor. And you can see that what's going on is it's brought in a texture file. And it's plugged it into all these different things using several different files. And you can see this little icon here. This means that it's a packed item. That means that this texture file lives inside the Blender file. So you can always get to stuff like that. If you go up to File, External Data, and right here you can see Pack Resources or Unpack Resources. You can use these to, like if you have a bunch of texture files and stuff, you can click Pack and it'll take all those texture files and save them inside your Blender file. So then you just have to give someone the Blender file and they've got everything. Likewise, if you receive a file like that and you want to unpack those textures to edit them like in Photoshop or something, you want to click unpack and it's going to create a directory called textures and it'll put all the textures in there and immediately link everything up for you. It's very, very useful. I love it. It's really great. But we're going to unplug the roughness to begin with because we don't really need that, and we'll crank that up so the roughness is more of an appropriate level. So let's talk about some ideas first before we dive into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to do. There's a couple of challenges in Blender when you're working with large crowds. One of them is if you want them to be animated, often you have like this, you've got an armature, right? So we can see we've got this, this armature, these bones here, and the animation of the walk cycle lives on those bones. And then you have the mesh, right? The mesh of this character here, which is then constrained to those bones. And these vertexes that make up this mesh, so if I go into edit mode, you can see all these vertexes, quite a few. Each one of these is weighted to these bones at a different rate. And so as the bones move, it's going to deform that mesh to go along with it. So that's how rigging works. That's how characters, follow a bone rig. So if you're not familiar with how that works, that's kind of a little glimpse into what's going on under the hood. When you have lots of these in your scene will begin to slow down quite a lot. Blender has traditionally been really unperformant around vertexes being moved by armatures. So the more vertexes you have that are being deformed by an armature, the slower your scene will operate. So one of the things we've got to do is get out of this armature animation. Basically, we need to escape that somehow and preserve the animation somehow in a way that's not going to slow things down. So that'll be kind of one of the big things we talk about, is how to do that. And we're going to be using an alembic file to do it. So bear with me. We're going to be throwing around a lot of terms today, but you're going to be a pro at this by the time we're done. The next thing we need to do is we need to come up with a way to, like, randomize elements of the textures, right? So this guy's shirt, we don't want to have 100 people with a white t-shirt, right? We want to have lots of variety in that t-shirt color. So we need a way to procedurally do that, so it's going to happen automatically, and we'll talk about that as well. The other thing is, how much geometry do we really need? Like, this is really dense geometry. If I go in here, you can see we've got a fair few number of vertexes, especially in his face. We can get real close on this character, and it looks good. It's got good detail. How much of that are we going to need? Like, are we going to be seeing these people from like this far away? Like, you don't need all that geo. So what level of geo do we need? So those are the three big things we'll talk about. And then we're going to move into creating a system, probably using geometry nodes, that's going to get these people to move through our scene. So I hope that's really good. I'm going to switch back over to my timeline, and I'm just going to select the armature object, which is where the bones are. That's where all the animation lives. So you can see these are the keyframes. And I'm going to go to that last keyframe, and you can see it ends on frame 29. So I'm just going to set my end frame to 29. That's just going to simplify things for me, so it'll loop through the animation, so I can just look at it really clearly. Okay, so we want to have hundreds of these guys walking around our scene. So we're going to need to get rid of the geometry that makes this character up. We need to reduce it down a whole lot, so that there's just like the bare minimum number of vertexes and polygons on this character. So let's start doing that. We're going to select the shirt first, and we're going to come over here. Now you'll notice in the modifier tab, we've got this modifier called the armature modifier. This is important. This modifier has to live on any mesh in Blender that is being controlled by an armature rig, so controlled by bones. So you want to keep that on there. We're going to add modifier, select back the shirt, add modifier, and we're going to go for the decimate modifier. I'll drag it up because we want to decimate the mesh first, and then we want the armature to deform stuff. If you do it the other way around, Blender will crash, pretty much. Now I'm going to drag the collapse all the way down. You can see if I go all the way down, he's going to disappear. And I'll just go down enough so that I've got enough detail. Things look okay, not terrible, but not more detail than I really need. So, and then I'm going to click this little drop down arrow and click apply. Now you might want to duplicate this mesh and save it off somewhere, so you've got it in case you go too far. You can always go back, because this is a pretty destructive process. And I'll come here, do the same thing, decimate, and I'll just do this to each of the different pieces of geometry. We can get rid of the eyelashes. We don't need those. It's kind of weird. Next up, let's look at the material. So I'm going to switch over to the shader editor. All right. Now, we're going to have like, 20, 30 of these guys walking around our scene, 100 of these guys. I don't know how many, but I want to make sure each one has a slightly different shirt color. I don't want to end up with the same shirt on all of them. So in order to do that, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a mix color node, and I will drop it here. I'll take the color of this shader or this texture file, plug it into the A slot, and then I'm going to create a color ramp. Now in this color ramp, we're going to create all the different variations we want. So I'll just click the plus a couple of times here, and I'll just spread these out, just making sure I've got a good range. They're evenly spaced-ish, doesn't really matter too much. And then we can come over here and just pick some color. So I might just do each of the different cardinal directions of the color wheel. We'll plug this into B, and we're going to turn the factor all the way up to 1. And I think what we'll do is we'll set it to multiply. So that's going to preserve the texture information that's already here. So this sort of fold detail and the little like texture seams and stuff, that's all going to preserve that. And we're just going to multiply this color on top of it. Now, what we're going to do is tell Blender to randomly pick between a position on this slider, this color ramp. So to do that, we're going to come over here and we're going to have the object info node. And we want to grab the random. This will give us a random number. I don't know what the range is on this. I'm pretty sure it's between 0 to 1, but maybe not. But it tends to work, so must be all right. We're also going to grab a math node. And we want to add a value to it. So we're going to drop this here. Now, the reason why we're adding a value, I'm going to put this to like 0.2 or something, is we're going to put, it's because we're going to merge all this geo soon so that it's one piece. And there's a reason for that, which we'll get to this. So that means that the random number it will generate on all the pieces will be the same. So having a little value that's added to it makes the shirt a little bit different than the pants, than the shoes. It just looks a bit nicer. I'll plug this value into the factor. And this is how this random number will basically pick a 0 to 1 number, a number between 0 and 1, adds 0.2 to it, and wherever that is on this 0 to 1 range is the color it's going to go with when it comes up into here. So I can plug this result now into the base color, and you'll see we get a different colored shirt along with, he's now an alien. But that's all right. We'll get to that. What's cool about this is if I duplicate this, so Shift D, you can see each time I Shift D, I'm going to get different colors on that shirt. That's cool. Look at that. It's like an ad for a jumper. I love it. Looks great. Okay, let's go to those guys. All right, let's get this cleaned up. I'm going to come down here to the pants, and I'm going to come to the material tab, and I'm going to click that, the number 8. That means there were 8 objects in the scene using this shader, and by clicking that, I've reduced that down. Now this is the only shader on this this piece of pants. Basically, it's duplicated the material, and now it's only assigned to this. So if I click on this, it's a different material. This is 001. So now I can change this value a little bit, maybe a bit more than 0.2 actually. I'll come here, let's go 0.5 for this one. And then I'll click the number on the shoes. So now the shoes have their own shader. If I could just start labeling these. Shoes, pants, paths. Yeah, that's weird. And then shirt and body. All right. Now for body, we don't want to have all these crazy vibrant colors. So we can get rid of the math node and the color ramp. And we're going to get another color ramp. And with this one, we can do the same thing. Random into the factor, color into B, and then we can select the black color and we can bring it up and go for more of like a darkish brown, more of a flesh tone color. And now take that white and we're going to bring it into this kind of range. And that should give us a good variety of skin tones. Yeah. I mean, it's horrifying. I shouldn't have done that. We're going to take him and we're not going to keep him, as is. We're going to export him as a special kind of file called an alembic file. The alembic isn't using an armature. It sort of gets rid of the armature. It looks at every vertex in the mesh for each frame of the animation, and it just kind of records in a database the position of each vertex, how it moves. And then it reproduces that when you import it. So basically you're just getting vertexes moving around in 3D space according to the pattern that's saved in the alembic file. So it's not having to worry about weight painting or binding or any of the bone dynamics, nothing that's going on with all that stuff that can really slow things down. It's all gotten rid of, and you're just looking at the movement of vertexes. So now, in order to make this really easy to use, we're going to merge all these down into one piece of geo. That way, when we bring it in as an alembic, we're not bringing in 1, 2, 3, 4 separate alembics for each character. That's just going to get too cumbersome. We're just going to have one alembic for one character. Okay, so to do that, let's shift select each part of the mesh, and we're going to hit Control J, and that will join. You can see the color changed, right? That's because the object ID changed. So this is now one object, so it has just one object ID. And you can see how our add has really benefited things. It shifted the colors just a little bit. All right, I'm just going to call this character. All right, now I'm going to save this file. So file, save. Now to export this as an alembic, what we want to do is select the armature and the character. We're going to hear file, export, and you're going to come to alembic. Where is it? There it is, .abc. That's the file type. Click that. Now we've got some important information over here. So what we're going to do is use the settings for, we can either use viewport or render. I don't think it matters. Yeah, so this is a gotcha. If you've got this set to like viewport and you've got like the render icon turned off, it won't export. It's kind of annoying. So just double check all that, make sure it's clear. All right, let's give this thing, we'll leave it character 01, ABC, and we're gonna just click export alembic. Now we wanna make sure it worked, okay? So I'm gonna open up another version of Blender, and here we are. I'm gonna go import alembic and navigate to my Alembic crowd character. Now when importing, I don't think I need to change anything. We can just leave it. Okay, so we've imported this Alembic. Now, you can see that what it does is if I open up the hierarchy, we've got this empty null, which is the armature, and we've got the character. All we really need is this, so I can just Alt-P to clear parent, and Alt-P clear parent, keep transformations, and then delete that. That way just simplify. Now we just have one object that we're dealing with. And in the modifier stack, you can see this thing called mesh sequence cache. This is a modifier that it adds automatically. It has the file path to the Alembic file. And then we've got the data that it's reading, so vertex, face, UV, and color. We actually don't need all this. We just need the vertex. We can actually just click on vertex. And one of the really cool things about this is this vertex interpolation tick box. If I turn that on, and then under time, if I just pause my playback, I turn on override frame. With that turned on, if I press play, it's not going to move because it's just going to override and set it to frame 0. I could set it to frame 10, for example, and it'll just stay on frame 10. But what we can do is we can actually animate this property and slow it down. So I can go a lot slower with it and make him walk slower. So we can change the speed playback of this animation, basically. And with vertex interpolation turned on, what it's doing is interpolating between the vertexes in each sort of frame of the Alembic. If I turn it off, you'll see he'll step between them. It's like chick, 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 chick. With this on, it's a smooth. This way we can change the speed and stuff. So we might play with that. This could be something we could play with in geometry nodes. Now we need to get the materials in, because if you see we go to shaded view, we don't have any materials. So the Alembic hasn't brought any materials along with it. But that's all right, because we're going to be using this Blender file from now on. So we just wanted to get this thing into an Alembic form. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go File, Append, and navigate to our previous Blender files, the one where we set up the original character. Click Append, and I'm going to go into Materials, and I want to select all the materials that I need. I want the pants, shirt, the shoes, the body, and I think that's everything. So I'll click Append. So now they should all be in my scene. There they are. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into edit mode with this guy. And when we merge them all together, Blender took all those different mesh pieces and they put them all together into one mesh, but it didn't fuse vertexes. So there's still parts that are loose. They're separate from each other. So we can use that to our advantage by hitting L, which is the button for select link. That will select any group of vertexes that are connected, by an edge. Anything that isn't connected by an edge won't be selected. All you have to do is hover your mouse over an area and hit L on your keyboard, and you'll get everything that's linked. So you can see if I hit L, 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 it's going to select more pieces. So let's start with the shirt. I'll hit L, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to grab the shirt material, and I'm going to click Assign. That will assign it to those verts. It also assigned it to everything because there was no material yet on it, but that's all right. Click plus to create a new slot, a new material slot, and let's select the pants. And so go here, pants, and click Assign. Now the pants are assigned there. Now let's do the shoes. So now it looks just like what we had before, but you'll notice if you were to bring them both into a scene, this one's going to run like 100 times faster. So much quicker. Okay, cool. Now, we can save this file. So File, Save As, and we're going to go character.o1.abc. So underscore ABC, just to be clear that this is the one with the Alembic file in it. Now we're going to do the same process for any other characters you downloaded. So we're going to get them all ready this way. And once you've got all of that, then we're going to jump into a new scene and do the next step. Okay, so we're in a fresh Blender file. We've set up all of our Alembics. We've got everything ready to go. Let's bring it in. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in each of my Alembics. I'm going to rename my collection here. Let's call this collection characters. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go File, Append, and we're just going to navigate to our folder with our Alembic crowd, and we want to grab the ones that we've labeled the Blender files. So we're not importing the Alembics, we're appending in the Blender files. And if we just go Collection and grab the main collection from each of those, File, Append. So that's character 1, character 2. So this is the characters that are Alembics. See, they're all set up with their mesh sequence modifier. Each of them, they're all playing and they're all decimated, and they've got the special materials on all of them. Okay, we're all set. Now let's hide this collection. turn it off for now. We're going to go Shift A, and I'm going to create a curve, Bezier curve. And I'm going to go into edit mode. I'll scale it up in edit mode. And I might just rotate this one on the Z a little bit just to line it up. And then I'm going to hit F3. I'm going to hit A first to select all, and then F3 and subdivide. And I'm going to maybe subdivide twice just to create a couple of different cuts. And I can just move this along the Y, and I want to make sure that this thing is flat on the ground. This is going to be a path for our characters to walk along. We can come over here to the modifiers, and we can add a geometry nodes modifier and click new. We'll call this character or crowd. Call this crowd. And let's bring up our timeline, and we're going to switch over to the geometry node editor. Okay, so let's make our curve a bit bigger first, actually. I need to just expand that out. We may have to adjust this a little bit as we go. I'm using Shift Z to G Shift Z to move it along just the flat plane, not moving it on the Z at all. Okay, now with all this, first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to create a grid. A grid is a mesh primitive. And we can use this to create a grid to randomly distribute points on the face, and then we can put the people on it, and then we can move them along the curve. So let's plug this in here so you can see it. I've got this mesh here. Let's back to flat shade mode. Zoom in a bit. So we've got our line. We can, change its size. Over here in Col, and we're going to get distribute points on faces. Drop this here. We'll set this to Poisson disk. And this way we can adjust kind of how far apart things are. So this is like 0.3 and 10. And I'm just going to expand this out a bit. Okay. Now we need to go instance on points, instance on points. And we'll select that there. And then we're going to grab a collection info. And the instance on points is basically going to instance geometry wherever one of those little points was. So remember where each of these dots will become a piece of geometry. So if I plug instances into the instances input there and select my characters collection, and I want to pick instances, so it will pick one each time randomly. And we want to separate the children, so it's not taking the whole collection. Forget which one of those does that. One of those does that. And then let's take these points into the points and plug this in, and you'll see we get lots of people. All right, now let's switch this to render view so we can see everybody. And then let's see, anything else? I don't think so. Let's take the distance up just a little bit, just to give them all a little bit more space. This is just to prevent intersections. You can see they're doing pretty good. If I hit play, they're all going to walk. Now we have a giant crowd. We can grab this crowd, move them around. You can see how fast it is in my viewport. This is my frames per second up here. And you see it's pretty lock steady around 25. And I'm recording at the same time. So, all right. So now as we make this bigger, it's just going to keep adding people. So we've got a massive crowd. See how well it all holds up. It's pretty cool. Let's see. I might take the distance max just up a little bit. I feel like these people are like way too close to each other. All right, now we want them to follow this, curve that we've laid out. So we are going to want to sample curve. The sample curve node allows us to grab this curve right here. And we're going to go for length. And I might bring the size of all this down for now, just while we're working on it. Got less people. And let's see, I want to set position, grab the set position node, and we're going to put it right here before we instance the points. This will kind of be the last thing we do over here. We're going to do a lot of this manipulation just to the raw point information itself. And we are going to offset them with the position output of the sample curve. And this will allow us to sample the curve and move everyone along the curve. Right now you can see it's putting them all in the exact same place, which we don't want. So I'm going to grab a random node, random value node, and I'll plug that value into the length. Now you can see this dotted line. What it's going to do is going to create a random number every single time it grabs one of those points. It's going to create a new random number, plug it in. So each person ends up with a different random number between all these. You can see how they string out along that curve. So now let's see, we've got the grid, distribute points on faces. Oh yeah, we set the position. We're going to set that to offset. And now it's going to scatter the crowd a little bit better. And you can see how it works, like it's scattering them along that curve. All right, now we just need to get a math node. And this add value we can add over time, and they're going to move along the curve. So we can come here and we can just type in hashtag frame. This will grab the frame of our timeline and use that to procedurally move everyone. I'm going to do zoom in so you can see it. Just going to click that and hashtag frame multiplied by 0.1. Let's just slow them all down a bit. Now we need to align them all to the direction of the curve. So we need to grab the tangent of the curve. We're going to use it to align everything. So we're going to go align Euler to vector. And this is going to need to go into this bit over here where we've got the actual instances, because points don't really have rotation info. They're just a point in space. So I'm going to grab the tangent, plug that in as the vector, and then I'll plug the rotation into the rotation. And we want to just go through here and find that. There we go. They're just facing the wrong way. So I just need to, can I just rotate? $180. Awesome. Now we probably want that value to be a little bit different for each one. So let's come over here, create another random value node, and we'll create a value node. And this one we'll do hashtag frame. And then let's grab a math node. And what we can do is multiply. So we're just like breaking out that little equation we just had, but having one of the numbers be random. So between maybe, so we'll go, the minimum could be 0.05 and the maximum could be 0.1. Wait, they all have slightly different speeds. I can right click, delete the driver, and then plug this in. There we go. So some people are walking faster than others. Maybe 0.01, have some really slow people in there. Yeah, that looks good. It's pretty cool. Now we don't need to keep it at, let's break things. Let's take our timeline to 500. And you'll notice everybody stops walking and they tilt off in a really crazy way. So how do we fix that, right? How do we have all these people walk continuously? Well, let's turn the characters collections back on. I can actually grab all these guys and just put them in that top level collection. We don't need all that. And let's come over here to the alembics. Now, under time, what we want to do is we want to actually sample each frame and put it into our override frame. So basically that way we can have it loop, right? When it reaches the end, we need it to go back. Now we have to get a specific equation for this. I'm going to hunt that equation down. Lender stack exchange, it's been there for a long time, I think. And the answer was posted here by a user, Leander. So basically we want to say, this is what we want to put in. We want to have the frame minus the starting frame. And then this percent sign means modulo, which is a function that kind of repeats values. And then we have the animation duration and then the starting frame. So in our case, we know there's 29 frames of animation. So we want to grab we're going to use the pound symbol to create a driver minus starting frame is going to be 0. So we don't need that. We go modulo animation duration, which is 29, plus the starting frame, which is 0. So that is all we need. Copy. And come over to time, override frame, and then paste that in. And now it should loop indefinitely. See, some of them are and the others aren't. So we just need to copy that over into the other ones. Time, override, paste. And click here, time, override, paste. Now they'll all be walking. Great. Now everyone's walking in lockstep, right? They're very synchronized. So we need to create a little bit of an offset in this alembic. So we need to, I think, what do we need to do? Let me think. I need to go back to my characters. I think, so to change the speed of all these guys, I think what we have to do, I think we need to take the frame number and slow it down. So times 0.5, so cut it in half. And that will make some of these guys walk in slower motion. I'm going to do a slightly different one for this one. Frame multiplied by 0.3. So that's enough just to shake up the variation between them, even though it's just 3 characters on repeat. And, you know, everybody that's character 3, they're all walking in lockstep. But there's enough variation between the characters that you're not going to notice that as much. So it's going to be a really effective way. Now we can turn this way up if we want to. Let's put a little bit of ground in there for these guys to walk on. Well, thanks so much for watching this tutorial. Hope you really enjoyed it, learned a few cool things. Hit that like button if you did. Don't forget to leave me a comment, any comment. They're all great. They all help promote the video. Really appreciate it. Let me know what kind of tutorials you'd like to see in the future as well. And if I see any that I really like, I'll pick it out and run with it. So thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Special thanks to everyone who's a patron supporter and everybody who supports by joining on YouTube. Really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for helping this channel continue. I will catch you in the next tutorial. Until then, have a fantastic week. See you later.